Very good morning. Myself, Dr. Saint Tripathi. I'm founder, president, Forum for Global Studies. On behalf of the Forum for Global Studies, I extend my warm welcome to my longtime friend from Russia, Dr. Kirill Sablin, who is a research fellow at Cambridge State University. We are so delighted, dear friend, to have you here in this roundtable discussion. And you are the main speaker to speak on the role of political connections in big business operating case of India and Russia. So thanks so much for accepting our invitation and joining this roundtable discussion. Thank you so much. Now today in this roundtable discussion, we have with us a very senior army officer, Mr. O.P. Tiwari, who has been Air Vice Marshal in India. And currently he is also serving as impaneled advisor, Union Public Service Commission (UPSC) in New Delhi. So thank you so much to have you in this roundtable discussion. Now we have with us Mr. Subhash Mehta, who is a PhD secretary at the PhD Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Thank you, dear friend, Dr. Subhash, for being here to give your valuable insights for this roundtable discussion. In this roundtable discussion, we have young scholars also, Mr. Sunil Mehta, who is pursuing currently MSW from IGNOU. Thank you so much, Sunil, for being here to this roundtable discussion. We have with us also Mr. Harsh, who is a scholar in JNU. So I welcome from on behalf of the Forum for Global Studies. So thank you so much, Harsh, for being here. Now I would like to invite my friend Dr. Kirill Sablin, who is the keynote speaker on this today roundtable discussion. So thank you so much. And now the floor is yours, Dr. Kirill Sablin.
Hello, good morning. My name is Dr. Kirill Sablin. Thank you so much, Dr. Saint Tripathi, for such great opportunity to take part in the roundtable on the Forum for Global Studies. It's my great pleasure to participate in all events associated with Forum for Global Studies, and I think that we have a great potential in the future to develop our initiatives. And today I would like to speak about the role of political connections in big business operating, and we try to analyze the cases of India and Russia, because you know that in Russia, of big business in Russia, it's a very great deal to have that top entrepreneurs or large entrepreneurs in Russia. They have political connections. They have to accumulate and to exploit political connections that to extract some benefits. And what are the political connections? So political connections are a unique resource that provide exclusive access to the factors of production, or we can say the economic factors, the labor, the land, the capital. And political connections, top entrepreneurs use political connections that legitimate violence of the state. And this is, we can say that it is a unique resource, because no one in the economy do not have this monopoly right to use the violence, the legitimate violence of the state. So political connections of large entrepreneurs and big business play a key role in ensuring exclusive access to factors of productions. And if we speaking about the Russian economy, it's primarily natural resources, mineral resources, and energy resources. You know that Russia, the main economic activities in Russian industries is extractive industries. And when we speak about extractive industries, and this process is associated with extraction of crude oil, natural gas, metals, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, and so on. And world experience shows that running any serious business in the resource sector without having political connections is almost impossible. And of course, we should analyze the conditions of the big business running in Russia, especially in the resource sector. And what we can say about it. Why political connections so valuable for the top entrepreneurs? The accumulation and use of political connections is a factor of accumulation of wealth by top entrepreneurs and big business, and that is why when we speaking about political connections, we can say that when top entrepreneurs use political connections, they maximize current business results as well as increasing the value of assets in the long term. So this is the crucial or the key factor that help top entrepreneurs to accumulate and to maximize the economic benefits on the economic markets especially when we are talking about the resource sector. And one more important thing, that these political connections, especially in Russia, have a very personal one. They're very personal. Interaction between top entrepreneurs and policymakers. And these personal connections with executive officials can be important even in a country with very strong democratic institutes, and at least, for example, during an acute financial crisis. So, I can say also that political connections can have very different forms. For example, the most important form of political connection is donations to political campaigns in industrial democracies. And when we are speaking about political connections, this exclusive resource do have not only, for example, in countries with emerging markets, but also in the countries with developed ones. So, and personal connections with political leadership play a key role in countries with personalized political regimes. For example, we can say about the China, the Iran, for example, the North Korea. And I can say that in Russia it's also, there's a long history of the Russian political regime that the supreme power in Russia is very highly personalized. So, and one more classification of political connections, that these connections may take a form of rational and transactional political connections. In the first case, rational political connections, it's a long-term personal connections between top entrepreneurs and policymakers, or how I can say the subjects of policy decision makers. And transactional political connections means that top entrepreneurs exchange their resources in the favors, for example, funding a political campaign in response to have a vote in the interest of the company. And on the other hand, top entrepreneurs have very strong and privileged treatment from the policymakers. And political connections as a channel to get economic benefits, that means that the mechanisms through which firms and top entrepreneurs receive economic benefits are very right. For example, political connections allow them to gain privileged access to bank financing and equity capital, and political connections allow firms to receive preferential treatment when participating in public procurement, for example, as well as to be subject to less stringent government regulations. And I want to say that these benefits is a very good competitive advantages if you try to compare politically connected firms or politically connected top entrepreneurs on the one hand, and those entrepreneurs who don't politically connected. So I want to say that political connections is a unique resource that strengthens the competitive advantages of separate top entrepreneurs or big business on economic markets. So, and I mentioned about the resource sector, that resource sector plays a great role in the Russian economy, and try to see the resource sector and political connections interlink. So the resource sector has a number of features that enhance the role of political connections in its functioning, and countries with significant reserves of natural resources, it's Russia, for example, Venezuela, so various African countries as well. So they have opportunity to extract or to scrape significant incomes in the resource rents, and these rents ensure that they have access to the latest technologies, and these rents also can be used as a source to implement large-scale social programs, for example, to combat poverty and so on. And I want to say that in Russia, for example, this is the problem that the Russia have a very huge reserves of natural resources, but it's not so good with their own technological developments. And that is why for the last decades, Russian government uses these resource rents to import technologies, for example, from European Union countries, from the United States of America. And now, according to the sanctions, to the comprehensive sanctions imposed on the Russian economy, it's a very good question whether Russian government and Russian resource extractive companies can change the direction of importing high technologies. For example, it's currently Russian government and Russian resource extractive companies, they have their eyesight on China, as well as India. but I'm not sure whether, for example, China and India can help Russia to gain high technologies, especially in the resource sector. So let's see in the future. So, and what about top Russian entrepreneurs? Me and my colleague, because this roundtable is according to the theme of political connections of Russian top entrepreneurs in Russian economy, according to the grant of the Russian Scientific Foundation. And me and my colleagues, we try to analyze and to find information about the Russian entrepreneurs, the top Russian entrepreneurs, and we use the Forbes, the business journal Forbes, and here there is a list of the 110 Russian billionaires, and we selected only 46 largest Russian entrepreneurs with assets in the mining or primary processing industries, according to analyze their assets and the dynamics of the changing of their assets in the resource sector, according whether or not they have political connections. Yes. Here you can see the table with the top Russian entrepreneurs from the resource sector by industry. So here the branch and the number of top entrepreneurs, and what we can see here, that the metallurgy, for example, oil and gas, it's 20 entrepreneurs, then 15 entrepreneurs from oil and gas, only one entrepreneur from coal mining, chemicals, 8 entrepreneurs, and woodworking only 2. So this is the resource sector. This is the sector where natural resources extracted and export, for example, to different for other countries, and the primary processing industries. So, and if we try to analyze the industry affiliation of the top entrepreneurs in Russia, so where are you from? I mean, this is a question for top entrepreneurs in Russia. The majority of entrepreneurs represent ferrous and non-ferrous metallurgy, followed by oil and gas production and the chemical industry, then wood processing and coal mining. So, significant proportion of the largest Russian entrepreneurs own assets and various industries. And here we can say about that in Russia, the organizational form of big business is so-called business groups, not corporations, but business groups. It means that individuals or persons, large entrepreneurs, top entrepreneurs, they have their assets not only in the resource sector, but also in non-resource. And of course, when we try to analyze the connections or the links between top entrepreneurs, between them, between the political actors, it's a very high proportion of informal ties. For example, friendship, then maybe relatives, and so on. So it's a very great issue. It's a very great issue on the one hand, and as well as it's a very great opportunity for Russian entrepreneurs to use these informal ties that to accumulate and to use assets in the resource sector. So, and this is, I think it's some kind of unique situation for the Russian economy. And you know that in the year 2014 and in the year 2022, there were sanctions of this year, and their categories. Conditionally, we can to point out the following sanctions. First one, it's a personal sanctions against large entrepreneurs and members of their families. For example, visa restrictions, the frozen of their assets in European Union countries. The second category of the sanctions imposed against certain Russian companies, for example, Gazprom, Lukoil, Tatneft, some companies from coal mining industry. And the third category, the sectoral sanctions imposed against certain sectors of the Russian economy. And let's see the top entrepreneurs in the resource sector. Here we can see the table with the entrepreneurs in the resource sector by the year of introduction. The first case, I mean, the first year is the year 2014, and this is the Crimea case when only 2 large entrepreneurs were sanctioned by European Union and the United States of America. And here we can see the year 2022, and here you can see that 24 entrepreneurs, top entrepreneurs in Russia were sanctioned according to the situation with Russian and Ukraine conflict in the year 2022. And also you can see other years, for example, 2018 2021 and the current year 2023. And also you can see there, for example, in the year 2018, 4 entrepreneurs were sanctioned. For example, Oleg Deripaska and Viktor Vekselberg is a very well-known persons. I mean, they are very top entrepreneurs in the Russian economy. And here we can see that these persons, they try to be very useful for Russian political leadership, and they try to implement different functions. For example, to help Russian leadership to relieve the sanctions and restrictions against them, and that is why these top entrepreneurs were sanctioned in the year 2018. So, and the next table is the top entrepreneurs are subject to personal sanctions by the industry, because we can see that in the year 2022, a great number of top entrepreneurs were sanctioned, but not all. And here you can see, for example, by industry, in metallurgy, only 15 from 20 top entrepreneurs were sanctioned. Also, we can see for oil and gas, for chemicals, for woodworking and coal mining. So it's a very interesting theme for the further analysis, because you know that, for example, European Union countries, United States of America and Great Britain, it's the most powerful economic and political centers in the world, and they impose sanctions against Russian companies, Russian top entrepreneurs. But at the same time, it's a very selective one, because if these Russian companies or top entrepreneurs, they compete on the economic markets, for example, with European companies, American ones, they are subject for sanctions. But if these companies and top entrepreneurs, they are not competitors or they're not rivals for the European and American companies, they are not subject for the sanctions. It's also it's some kind of I can say that maybe we can indicate this behavior of European Union and United States of America and Great Britain as some kind of double standards, maybe, according to the sanctions policy. So, and the results indicate that the group of top entrepreneurs subjected to sanctions after March 2014 and the February, after March of 2014, didn't differ statistically significantly from top entrepreneurs not subject to sanctions in either the value of growth of assets. So, an individual subjected to sanctions after February 2022 are statistically significantly different from both top entrepreneurs not subjected to sanctions and those subjected to sanctions after March 2014. So, what is the difference? Because here we can see that the asset levels were higher, as was the rate growth in the asset value. So, what is the link between political connections and value assets growth? So there is fairly strong evidence that political connections are associated with higher rates of wealth accumulation. This is the first point. However, may we say that the effect of having political connections differs depending on the industry. So me and my colleagues, we tried to find out whether, if we take into account the affiliation of top entrepreneurs to resource sector or non-resource sector, whether political connections have a very great value, for example, for top entrepreneurs in the resource sector or not. And in other words, can we say that political connections play a more important role in the resource sector of the economy? Then my colleague from Kirill State University, Dmitry Kislitsyn, estimates the following model. You can see on the slide. So here we can see the connections. They have a binary variable, so equals 1 if the entrepreneur has political connections at the federal level, and 0 if not. The industry, the industry in which the entrepreneur operates. So here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0. So 0 is a basic category, and all other industries. And the results. So political connections and industry regression estimates. This is the table. See, we can see the importance of political connections in all industries, in all resource industries, in metallurgy, in oil and gas, in chemistry, in energy. So what does it mean? It means that political connections of top entrepreneurs have positive effects on the level of asset value. This is the first point. And this effect does not differ depending on the industry. So I want to say that if you want to be involved in big business and if you want to run big business in Russia, you have to accumulate and to use and to exploit political connections on federal level with top executives. So we have no reason to. That is why we have no reason to assert that political connections play a greater role in the resource sector of the economy than in the non-resource sector. And the main result, and maybe the most possible, or perhaps it's some kind of basic result or basic explanation, that the size of the business and not its industry affiliation is the decisive factor in this case. I mean, big business equals to have political connections. And we have some experience. I mean, me and my colleagues some years ago, we tried to analyze the behavior of innovators, the entrepreneurs in the innovation sector of our region, Kirill region, and we have special structure, Kuzbas Technopark, Technological Park. This structure was founded in the year 2007, and we have a interaction with the residents of this Technopark. I mean, residents is the innovation entrepreneurs. And they told us that if you want to be involved in the innovation process, if you want to generate innovations, it's a small business, small one. You have to find and you have to establish political connections with local and regional authorities. If you don't have such connections, if you don't have political connections or administrative connections with local authorities or regional authorities, you don't have any chance to get a status of resident at Technological Park. So this is the important, because in economic theory, in economic science, if you try to analyze the behavior of entrepreneurs, you should analyze only factors of production. I mean, land, capital, entrepreneurial abilities, and so on. But as we can see that we also should to take into account this factor like political connections. So, some ideas about political connections in big business in India, because frankly speaking, I concentrated on the political connections of the Russian top entrepreneurs, but at the same time, I monitor some resources according to the political connections of big business in India, and I found that businesses and politics have a close symbiotic and real relationship in India. And when we are speaking about political connections, I mean the connection between economic and political actors. Unfortunately, we're speaking about so-called rent-seeking behavior. Rent-seeking behavior when entrepreneurs use their connections in the government that to extract political rents. So, and there is two-faced character of the state that allow business actors to infiltrate multiple arenas and access points found across institutions of democracy, public institutions, and regulatory bodies. And here I have the reference for the scholar, how business, how business and politics intersect in India's power state. And the last one, that there are linkages between politics and business in India. So, nevertheless, when we try to analyze the behavior of big business, not only in Russia, not only in the countries with emerging markets, as well as the behavior of big business in the countries with developed markets, we also try to find the signs that this big business uses political connections. Formally, informally, personally, or institutionalized, for example, in the form of lobbying interests. Yeah. But nevertheless, we are also always analyze these connections between political actors and economic ones. So, what is some kind of preliminary results. The first one, that political connections do matter in big business operating, whether we compare, for example, Russia or India or other countries. No, it doesn't matter, but that political connections matters. Then this is a fair effect for the Russian economy, where big business entrepreneurs need to accumulate and to exploit, to use political connections to have commercial success on the economic markets. So, because it's some kind of paradoxical result, because if you compete on the economic market, you should use your abilities, your mind, your skills, on your opportunities, but to win on this competition, you use the connections with government officials. And the last one, India. In India, big business representatives infiltration into public bodies that to pursue their private interests. It's not only for India, it's also for Russia. And as I told before, in the Russian economy, top entrepreneurs actively use informal ties inside governmental bodies, not only on the federal level, but as well as on the municipal level, local level, on the regional level, led to to seek and to scrape political ranks. So this is the main points of my presentation. Thank you so much that you have a great time to participate on the roundtable, and this is very important for me because we involved, me and my colleagues, we involved in this theme at last 3 or 4 years to analyze, to find, because it's very hard, and it's sometimes it's very hard to reveal this information and to analyze the political connections between, and it's some kind it's very dangerous because most people, when they hear in Russia, hear about political connections, it's some kind of corruption. No, it's not corruption, because it's very complicated, and sometimes political connections are used by big business not to seek and to extract political rents, but at the same time political connections may use to produce added value that in the Schumpeterian sense. Joseph Schumpeter is the American economist, and he introduced 5 types of innovations on the economic markets. And it's amazing, but sometimes big business use political connections that to produce Schumpeterian innovations. It's some kind of paradoxical, because and in this case we can say that political connections can substitute innovations, but at the same time in other cases political connections can be complemented by Schumpeterian innovations that to compete on economic markets. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, Sablin is wonderfully covered. The very important issue all over the world, because these business houses, big business houses cannot survive without the government support, and even the country economy, government cannot survive without the big business houses. It's very important, but there are different type of role everything is plays. Russia, I know how the Russia was before breakup. After breakup, again the lot of resources went, certain companies went, sanction went, so they had no choice to let the Russian company come up and grow. They require support. Similar thing has happened in India. What happened? Indian companies, lot of multinationals, outside companies have been operating. They are operating still, but we require infrastructure development, defense development, defense equipment. In that case, the country wanted to bring our own people. So how the own people will come? Like I give a reference of 2 very big business houses, right now, Ambani and Adani. They wanted to invest. When a big company invests, when they are assured of market, see, they cannot make investment without saying that. So for that, government assurance should be there. So that point of view, you can consider that there is a collision. There is some understanding between them. It's true. They help each other, but we cannot work from them. Now, if you consider this aspect, like number of multinationals in India was phenomenal. Okay. Now these 2 countries are coming up well. In the past, we had a very big business houses. Okay. All business houses were not working towards the country and national interest. I'll give you an example of one particular industry, Tata Group. See, Tata has become, even the Birla was common. They were a household name in every houses because they not only worked for their own benefits, but they have been working for the national and the people of this place. Tata employees, they say, we are better off than the government employees. Okay? So they had made the reputation for them. Even if they are not funding the government or the political party, but they'll still be supported by the government. Okay? Nowadays, India requires more investment. A lot of companies coming up. A lot of states are inviting different. So now ease of business is taking place. If you heard any chief minister addressing, say that India is making ease of business. You come, you are welcome. You don't have to give a support to us. You don't have to give money to us. But still you are welcome and I will give assistance help. But they are smaller houses. And slowly they are becoming big. So it was a very nice, very well covered. India is going through the same process. But now the attitude and things have changed. Approach of the Indian government has a little bit of changed. We cannot work only with the 2 or 3 houses. We have, if you want to grow, India is a vast country, different groups, different community. They have to develop in the different remote corners so that we can employ employability or other things. But it was very nicely brought up and we are very happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kirill, for such a wonderful presentation. And in the beginning, I thought it's a very general, topic wherein we all know that, in business or in politics, there's always some kind of, connection between the two, and they are like they go hand in hand. The connection or the relationship go hand in hand. But what you brought out, to the fore, is that you actually try to differentiate between how a political party or a political person and a business house can have a connection, but there may not be any kind of corruption in that connection, and how there can be a connection, but there can also be corruption. So that's the difference which I could understand from there. So it's not necessary that if a political party or a political, let's say, house and a business house have a connection, then it's not necessary that there's a corruption going on. But there's some kind of veiled, I could say, ignorance or a veiled kind of understanding which is existing today, because in present times, the general public or the aam aadmi, in Indian language we say in Hindi, they always have this notion that if Adani and Ambani are like sitting with the Prime Minister of India or sitting with a high-ranking political official, government official or a political statesman, then they certainly have a some kind of a negative relationship, which would actually which can lead to some kind of corruption or some kind of irregularities in terms of funding, in terms of, let's say, a political campaign funding. So that's what my statement is. And second, there was one part of your presentation wherein you said that these industries, their affiliation is not actually related to their connection to the political party is not related to what kind of business or what kind of revenue they are earning, but there's something else. So I just want some kind of elaboration on that. So what kind of industrial affiliation they have, or what kind of production they are having. So I just want to ask you, like, if you can elaborate on that. And the first part of my comment was on, from what I understand, it is like you are trying to tell it's not necessary that there's corruption. So what is that? What are we looking for? And what is that particular answer we are seeking in terms of the connection? So that's what my comment is. Thank you.
It's a very seminal question, and yes, indeed, I try to to say that political connections in Russian big business, because and the previous comments, they have a very strong connection. Your comment and that big business and top entrepreneurs or large entrepreneurs, they can use political connections not only to extract and to extract political rents and to realize their private interests. Because as far as I know, yes, it's okay for big business to seek commercial benefits. But at the same time, and thank you so much for your comment, sir, that political connections and big business can use political connections to realize public interests. For example, to create new jobs, to invest in the social infrastructure, in engineering infrastructure, and so on. And now, for Russia, yes, we can say, for example, in some cases there are some manifestations of corruption, but it's not the main case. The main case that currently in the Russian economy, top entrepreneurs, so we call them so-called oligarchs. Oligarchs, because not tycoons, but oligarchs. Yes, and actually, we found the following situation that now in Russia there are oligarchs without oligarchy. So this is not the system, and I can tell you more that these oligarchs in Russia, in the research area and expertise area, we call them appointed oligarchs, because the ruler, in the figure of the president of the Russian Federation, he gave them the most valuable assets, and the most valuable assets in the Russian economy exactly is the natural resources, energy resources, because you can use it and you can increase your personal wealth. So, and that is why the main problem, how we can to make some recommendations that these political connections, it will be great. It would be great if they will be used to realize not only private interests of these oligarchs, but also to realize public interests of the population of the Russian federations. And maybe it's some kind of specificity of the Russia, that Russia is a very huge and vast country. And when we are speaking about these industries, for example, metallurgy, oil and gas, coal mining, the companies or business groups from these industries have competitive advantages on the global markets. But at the same time, companies from other industries, for example, automobiles, aircrafts, some kind of chemicals, these companies are not so good, and they don't have competitive advantages on the global markets. And here we can see the situation when a few number of Russian companies only generate wealth in the Russian economy, but the rest of the economy, unfortunately, not competitive on the global markets, and that is the great problem. And we want to believe that these political connections will be used in the future, that to invest and to develop the rest of the economy of the Russian federations. I mean, because resource sector generate a huge wealth only for these persons, but not for the rest of the economy. And I can say you again that this is the great problem, that currently the mainstream or the main line for the oligarchs to realize or to maximize their private interests, not public ones, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sablin, for your insightful remarks on this very important topic roundtable discussion. When you are making comparison with India and Russia, especially the political connection. So you are right in that sense, in the Russia, that Russian economy needs a lot of attractions, especially those who are not business background. But if the government is facilitating the kind of connections, even the common man, if someone is aspiring to become, as a business leaders, so if government is facilitating such kind of ecosystem, so I think that might work to boost in the Russian economy, because the Russian economy, it needs lots of engagement, the common people engagement. The kind of Russian economy is facing sanction. So you are right in that sense, that this kind of the perception and the persona about connections, especially I'm talking about in India. In India, connections between, you can say the proximity between business lobby as well as the political circles. It is highly deep rooted negative perception. And just because of the certain historicals and so many other factors behind this negative perception. But as former Air Vice Marshal O.P. Tiwari sir pointed out, that lots of big businesses are working for the benefit of the society. Especially I'm talking about the CSR, corporate social responsibility, right? So this is somehow the 2% they have to donate for the society. So and especially today in Indian government, we are promoting the startups, and these are the startups. They don't have need to lots of very high level political connections. The bank system are facilitating the funds for them. They are a well-crafted policy to boost these startups. So I think this is a very wrong perception. If someone has a connection with the politician, so I think in your presentation when you made it very clear by quoting to Sumputer, economist Sumputer, that this is one part. For example, the other parts like capital, like the land, like the technology. So this is one also part. So it means that it is accepted norms. But in India, especially the socialistic model and so have the negative perception about the capitalistics. So it is getting changed. Now the paradigm has shifted from this perception, from the negative and towards the positive. Now, if you have a connection, that does not mean this is corruption. Because if your policy is very clear, if your policy is very transparent, if your banking system is very robust and sound, so I think anyone can go and start the business in India. Currently, especially I'm talking about the startups. So many youngsters, they are coming and they establish their businesses. So that I think this kind of negative processes are getting diluted over the time. So thank you so much. Your a very scientific analysis, your scientific informative lecture. It will give lots of value insights to our policymakers and to layman also, the common man also, that the connection does not mean corruption. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another question?
I'll just add up.
Add one. And after sir, I'll add one more. Sure.
Sandeep was saying this will this will also give an insight for the same business tycoons, what is say oligarchs, to look into themselves and see either they have to work only for the revenue or the funds, or you have to look after others also. Government has enforced by CSR you have to spend so much money. For foreign companies, you have to buy certain percent, you have to reinvest in India. But they have to look inside themselves and see that we have won enough. Now let's look on a slightly more wider perspective for the country research.
Yes. I think I'll just add one more point to this discussion. I just want to ask you, because in India's case, I think in my opinion, the political connections between the corporates or industry and the politicians is more so because of the corporates or the industry wanting to get an alternative source of mileage or an alternative source of branding. Like if a company, like let's say a very average company which does not have a large kind of following in the country, and that company's meeting, or let's say that company's annual general meeting is presided over, or let's say it's inaugurated by a big political figure like Narendra Modi or Amit Shah, for example, I think that company will get more clients or more customers after they see that that particular company is being supported or being promoted by a big political leader like Modi or Amit Shah. In my opinion, this is the case with India. So is that the same case with Russia? That's what I want to understand. Why the industry or corporates want to align themselves with a large figure like Prime Minister or a President, or in India's case, Modi or Amit Shah?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your seminal comment and for your question. So it's a very good idea to see the positive attitude of the population according to the companies that have some connections with the government, because government itself has a very, as far as I understand, in India, has a very positive image or reputation among population. But in Russia, it's a very great problem because you know that since the collapse of the Soviet Union and in the 90s, there was a great problem of how to legitimate the property, the private property of big business, because currently, so after the 25 years or the 30 years since the Soviet Union collapsed, this problem don't have any decision how to legitimate private property of big business. And if you ask me about the attitude of the population to the top entrepreneurs, I must say that there is some kind of negative attitude of the population, of the ordinary people in Russia, for the big business, because most of the people, especially older people, who has they live their lives in the Soviet Union, and they think that it was not fair after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and only a few of young men get their very huge amounts of wealth and assets in the resource sector. It was unfair if we see the situation with the ordinary people. So it's negative attitude, a negative image of big business. Well, ordinary people in Russia say that what is the top entrepreneurs in Russia? They only thinking about how to make their pockets with big money. That's the point.
Sandeep was saying, I'm absolutely agreement with him. This will indicate to it will also give an insight for the same business tycoons, what you say, oligarchs, to look into themselves and see either they have to work only for the revenue or the funds, or you have to look after others also. Government has enforced by CSR you have to spend so much money. For foreign companies, you have to buy certain percent, you have to reinvest in India. But they have to look inside themselves and see that we have won enough. Now let's look on a slightly more wider perspective for the country as such.
I think I'll just add one more point to this discussion. I just want to ask you, because in India's case, I think in my opinion, the political connections between the corporates or industry and the politicians is more so because of the corporates or the industry wanting to get an alternative source of mileage or an alternative source of branding. Like if a company, like let's say a very average company which does not have a large kind of following in the country, and that company's meeting, or let's say that company's annual general meeting is presided over, or let's say is inaugurated by a big political figure like Narendra Modi or Amit Shah, for example, I think that company will get more clients or more customers after they see that that particular company is being supported or being promoted by a big political leader like Modi or Amit Shah. In my opinion, this is the case with India. So is that the same case with Russia? That's what I want to understand. Why industry or corporates want to align themselves with a large figure like a prime minister or a president, or in India's case Modi or Amit Shah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your seminal comment and for your question. So it's a very good idea to see the positive attitude of the population according to the companies that have some connections with the government, because government itself has a very, as far as I understand, in India, has a very positive image or reputation among population. But in Russia, it's a very great problem, because you know that since the collapse of the Soviet Union and in the 90s, there was a great problem of how to legitimate the property, the private property of big business, because currently, so after the 25 years or the 30 years since the Soviet Union collapsed, this problem don't have any decision how to legitimate private property of big business. And if you ask me about the attitude of the population to the top entrepreneurs, I may say that there is some kind of negative attitude of the population, of the ordinary people in Russia, for the big business, because most of the people, especially older people, who has they live their lives in the Soviet Union, and they think that it was not fair after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and only a few of young men get their very huge amounts of wealth and assets in the resource sector. It was unfair. If we see the situation with the ordinary people, so it's negative attitude and negative image of big business. Well, ordinary people in Russia say that what is the top entrepreneurs in Russia? They only thinking about how to make their pockets with big money. That's the point. And if you try, and it's a very good comment about startups. As I told you in my presentation, the case of the Kuzbas Technological Park, young people who want to be the innovation entrepreneurs in my native region, they have to find the channels and to initiate the connections with officials and the local authorities, regional authorities, that to get status of resident, because the status of resident of the technological park guarantee you some kind of privileges, and after that you can initiate your innovation project. But at the same time, I want to say that for the last 5, maybe 6 years, our officials, our government officials on the different levels, on the federal levels, regional ones, or subnational, on the local level, they try to use very popular projects. For example, it's a good idea to modernize our Russian economy, or it's a good idea to build innovation economy, and there is a great amount of public funds that is spent on these projects. But at the same time, there is no some sound results. And after 5 years, after 6 years, after 7 years, we leave and we see that, it would be a great idea to build, for example, some innovation economy and startups and so on, but we don't see this. And a great amount of public funds was spent on these projects. Thank you.
Because when you mentioned the oligarchy, I was writing a book on Putin's leadership.
Yeah.
So there was one chapter on how did he manage the Russian economy, because very dismantled and this chaotic order that lasted 90s, completely 10 years under the Yeltsin regime. And then he was trying to consolidating his regime in Russia. So dismantling the oligarchs was one of the major initiatives by the Putin leadership, and very consciously and very in a planned way he dismantled oligarchs, big oligarchs, and he especially those who are associated with the oil and gas areas, and the way he took all the control from the oligarchs, and oligarchs, they were very powerful during Yeltsin regime, and and he knew this fact that if he wanted to consolidate and legitimize his rule in Russia, so he has to dismantle and dilute the power of oligarchs. So in that way, I think he very aggressively dismantled oligarchs and took the control of oil and gas companies, right? And his own state control, especially Gazprom, Lukoil. So this is somehow, I think, when we are going to analyze Putin's regime in Russia. So this is one step that you mentioned, the very negative image regarding the oligarchs, and this is what the reason, this negative image he wanted to dismantle, because he has to he wanted to legitimize his rule. And if he has to continue his rule, I'm talking about the 2000, right? So during that time, he took very fundamental steps to dismantle oligarchs and took the control oil and gas sector. So I think this is somehow, and this step might work to give somehow a fair image of industry, that yes, these industry are on the Russian control. It's not the private control. Dr. Sablin.
So yes, you are quite right. Thank you for your comment. But here we should divide different types of oligarchs. You told us about the oligarchs when there was the previous president of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin, and this oligarchs was dismantled by the current president of the Russian Federation. But at the same time, so here we can say about the cronies. Crony capitalism, for example, cronies. I mean the friendship between these persons with the president of the Russian Federation, and actually we can say that there are oligarchs of the new wave after the year 2000. Yes, it's not the previous oligarchs of the Yeltsin, Boris Yeltsin. Yeah, because it is an old one, and now the last 23 years since Putin became the president of the Russian Federation, since the year 2000, we can speak about the oligarchs of the new wave. Yes, and in the economic literature, I met the term silovarks. There is siloviks. So this is the persons who have the monopoly right to use the violence resource in the Russian economy, and oligarchs. So this is the person who have very huge amounts of wealth, economic wealth, and economic instruments to influence on the president of Russian Federations. So this is the two groups of persons, silovarks. So the violence, the resource of violence, on the first place, and the second one, this is the resources. Once again, oil. Natural gas, and so on and so on. So this is the point. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Sablin, for your insightful remarks, your deliberations, and in my initial welcoming remarks when I was making. So it was hopeful that the kind of deliberation you made here, it will be very valuable for Indian policymakers, of course Russian policymakers, and the kind of negative perception about the linkages, the proximity between business lobby and as well as the politicians. Now it will set light on new insights. And thank you so much, sir, for your deliberations, for your questions, for your valuable remarks on this roundtable discussion. It's we are very privileged to have today your remarks, Air Vice Marshal O.P. Tiwari sir. Thank you, my friend Subhas Mehtaji. Your research experience is based on the Russia, so obviously your remarks is going to be very insights for the Indian policymakers, and the way you narrated the emerging trends in India, especially the proximity between the business lobby and the governments. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.